Hello and welcome to episode 132 of Random Encounter, the RPG fan podcast. I'm your host, Robert Steinman, Pale Robbie on the boards. Joining me today is Protein Shake Derek.
Sure, or Derek, Tokyo Better Xana Don't, Heemsbergen, and I'm Embryon on the boards, even though I never watched it.
Damn, shots fired. We were trying to be all diplomatic on Tokyo Xanadu, but apparently you're just gonna drop the hammer, huh?
I mean, I'm being hyperbolic for the sake of providing you with entertainment, but
When has anyone on the internet ever done that?
Never. It's never happened before. See?
No one.
Joke.
He's actually the first person to ever do that. Ever.
Exactly.
It's my
I'm very
Plinkett.
innovative here on Random Encounter.
That's my Plinkett impression right there. And we also have Steph. I didn't bother to think up a nickname because I'm a horrible person. Sabidlo.
Hi. I didn't think of any sort of clever introduction, so I mean,
I could
that.
It's always like some variation of like, oh, Steph Maple Poutine Sabidlo or whatever.
Yeah, you just make fun of me being a Canadian, man. I'm getting
All right,
sad.
fine. How about Steph? I don't know what Pickle Rick is. Sabidlo.
We don't have any Charlottesville incidents here, at least.
Wow!
Jesus Christ.
Oh
Yeah.
my God!
We
Yeah.
deserve that.
Make fun of Canada all you want.
No. That. Okay. I haven't. Derek, you have anything? Because I don't.
I just graduated from my own
well-
nickname.
not to like, I realize that this is an RPG and video game centric podcast, but just like a brief note that the things that were happening in Charlottesville, from my perspective, are just absolutely atrocious. And I condemn those people, and I think that that's no way to live and no way to treat other human beings. So F that, and let's talk about video games.
I would tend to agree. And Jesus. Anywho, yeah, let's talk about video games. Let's talk about positivity, and then we'll all just get up in a car and drive up to Canada and just hang out with Steph.
That's fine. I'm good with it.
Except when it gets cold.
Yeah.
I'm a little baby with the cold. I get.
Yeah,
I've lived in Tucson, Arizona, my entire life. So like, it drops to like 50, and I'm like, I'm freezing.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So,
I'm having a summer scarf.
yeah.
So we have tons and tons and tons of games to talk about. A lot of quick hits, some thoughts on lots of games, including one game that is over in Japan right now, and we really wish that we were playing it. Hello, Dragon Quest. But first off, Derek, I want you to talk to me about Pyre.
Pyre. You want to hear about
Pyre.
Pyre? So Pyre.
Pyre.
Not to be confused with vampire.
Pyre.
Let me teach you some, Rob, a little something about Pyre.
Pyre.
Oh my God, I'm going to punch you in the throat. Pyre is the third and most recent game from, Jesus Christ, from the folks at Supergiant Games who made Bastion and Transistor. And we've talked pretty extensively about both of those games in this podcast. I think we tend to have fairly similar opinions here. I'm not a huge fan of Bastion. I think Bastion is overrated, which is like a very weak criticism that I'm sure I could expand upon if I had more time and put more effort into it. But I think Bastion is sort of like one of those games that was conceptually very interesting, and I appreciated the art style especially and the narration. But I just felt like as a game it wasn't super fun to play. So when Transistor came out, I was a lot more excited because I was like, yeah, I'm jiving with this art style. It's a little bit more RPG. It's got some tactical elements in it. But as Rob and I have discussed on the show, we both seem to agree that the combat in Transistor really just sort of, it becomes one note because it's like once you devise a clever strategy, you never have to switch it up. And so much of the lore in that game comes from using different abilities, which is like very counterintuitive. Because the more you level stuff up or use those abilities, you get background info on like the person that you gain that ability from or how it came to be or whatever. So
Literally at odds with each other.
Right. And so for my part, I found Transistor to be another flawed but very interesting game, especially like the art direction is just absolutely phenomenal in that game. And so is the music.
Games, yeah.
But the gameplay fell short for me. And I felt like the story was needlessly esoteric, like way, way far up the writer's asses of like, we're presenting something very highbrow. And I can appreciate that for sure. But it felt like they were more focused on that as an idea than actually delivering something that was complex thematically. So,
if I could
Yeah, go
just
ahead.
jump in there a little bit. I think the other thing that I struggled with that game and a lot of games in general is when you give me tons and tons of choice, if I find something that works, I'm just going to do that over and over again. Like, even if I replay the game, it's hard for me to say, hey, I'm going to try it like this. Because if I found something that really works with the way I play video games, I'm just going to go and do that. So, like, with Transistor, it became, hey, this is working for me over and over again. I guess I'm just going to keep doing that. And so there was, like, no incentive to do anything at that point. And it was just very, very strange. Very strange game.
That's a mentality I sometimes have to fight to get myself out of too. And a weird example that jumps to mind is when I used to replay a lot of longer RPGs when I was younger and had less games but more time. Like, I replayed Final Fantasy 7, 8, and 9 like a billion times each. No hyperbole here, guys, a billion times. And each time I would probably, when I was a lot younger, I would probably pick the same characters and sort of ability loadouts over and over again. And so there came a point where I was like, why am I doing that? I should switch it up and try using different characters. And I had this.
I've actually done the exact same as you. Yeah. Now I'm just I might as well make it interesting.
Yeah. So I had this experience where I didn't beat Final Fantasy 9 until a lot later than the other two. And it was still a while ago. I mean, it was probably a decade ago at this point. But when I finally did play it for the last or most recent time, I was like, I'm going to switch out my party. And I use characters I never used, like Freya and Quina and Amarant. And I found it to be so much more interesting because I was just like, ordinarily I would never pick these characters because I don't, I love Freya as a character. And the other ones are, Quina's fine. Amarant's like a non-entity. Anyway, but I picked them and doing so, like consciously choosing to play with a different setup kind of altered my experience in some weird fundamental way, and I had a lot more fun with it. So ever since then, I try to take that approach when I find if a game is becoming stale because I'm falling into this formula, I want to vary it up. So Transistor is a game that would greatly benefit from applying that mindset, and yet, like Rob, I had a hard time as well switching my tactics up. So anyway, all of that was just background info for me to start talking about Pyre, Pyre. Pyre is the third and most recent game from Supergiant, and it's so we covered it and we have a review of it, but it's like NBA Jam with magic in the underworld. It is a super unusual game, and I think it's all the better for it. Pyre has really hooked me in a way that the first two games haven't, and I think that it's not without its issues, but Pyre, I think it's got the kind of secret sauce. Like Supergiant, it took them 2 tries for me, but on their third one, they sure did it. So the gimmick or the main conceit behind Pyre is you're playing as a band of exiles who are in basically what amounts to an underworld, and you're looking for a way to win your freedom back and return to the quote unquote real world or whatever you want to call it. It's called the Commonwealth. And the only way to do that is to participate in these sort of ritualistic sports called the rites. And the rites are essentially 3-on-3 basketball or soccer or something like that, where you have to dunk this magic orb or shoot this magic orb into your opponent's flaming pyre, which is their goal. While it sounds like a pure action game and it is extremely action heavy, there are actually RPG stats at play, and there are a lot of different characters, each of which control and operate very differently. And you can even level them up and sort of pick perks for them out of skill trees. There's not a ton. There's maybe 8 perks per character, but there's enough that you can customize your characters, to your liking and use who you want to use. And like I said, it's 3-on-3, and I want to say you have something like 10 or maybe more playable characters available to you by the time you get to endgame, which isn't very, very long.
Did they all play really differently too?
Yeah, super differently. There's Jodariel is basically like a demon. She's this really big hulking woman that has these curved horns, and she moves super, super slowly, but she can kind of act as a goalie for you. And then you have Ruki, who is this he's a cur, so he kind of looks like a wiry, lithe dog. And he moves super, super fast, and his whole thing is he can kind of drift and skid and shoot the ball fast, or he can dive in, and he has a trait that gives him more points if he dives in as opposed to other characters. So it encourages you to find what each character's strengths are and sort of form a team of 3 around that, and all the while improving your characters with these sort of light RPG elements. And so that's really fun. And I it's not perfect, but it works well. And there's a versus mode that I've actually had a lot of fun playing with my friends. It's local, offline only, which is kind of a bummer. And I think that this game could really thrive competitively if it had an online mode. But what drew me to it more than anything was the narrative and the art direction. Now, if you've ever seen any screenshots of Pyre, it's like this sort of weird dreamscape, like a lot of darker blues, reds, greens. It's hard to explain. It's an underworld, but it's a very beautiful underworld, and it's got a lot of sort of like rotted.
It's very all stained glass coloring. I remember.
Yeah,
all the tones are really, really deep.
Yeah, it's got like this austere sort of beauty to it, and it's like traveling through the underworld is a joy in itself, and that's part of the discovery. Is like, where are we going to go to next to conduct the next rite? And the story is actually, it's interesting. The writing is phenomenal, and it doesn't lean so heavily on the mystery element. Like, there's definitely mystery and intrigue, but it's not quite as out there as Transistor, so you can follow it. And I mean, I typically don't have trouble following stories, and it's not that I had a hard time following Transistor. It's just like I wanted a little bit more than what they gave me. So Pyre is fulfilling that for me.
It's a very visually striking game. I think that was the thing that kind of took me away with it. But again, my experience with Bastion and Transistor kind of, I don't know, it kind of drove me away a little bit of like, well, 2 times I haven't really been into your games, and I'm not really sure if this is going to be the one. They apparently built like a ton of lore for this game, and one of the more interesting things is that you can lose and the story will continue. Can you talk a little bit more about that, Derek?
Yeah, so to your first point about the lore, each of the characters that join your sort of traveling party is in exile to the underworld. And so they have their profiles that you can access from your caravan, and you don't actually know why most of them are there. Like, there are spaces where you can fill in information about what was their crime, how long have they been exiled for, like what was their position in the world before they came down here, because either they don't remember or they're not telling you. So there's a lot of interesting lore to discover on your own, depending on which characters you choose to use more in, quote unquote battle or in matches, whatever you want to call it. And then as far as losing and continuing on, so this, I would consider it like a very mild spoiler because I didn't know about this, but it's right there on the trophies. So I will go ahead and say it, that the catch with getting out of the underworld is that at the end of the sort of tournament or the sequence of rites, at the very end, the winning team can only choose one person to return to the real world. And so there's story things happening alongside that. But if you lose your last match, one of your enemies gets to go to the surface, and they're out, and then the cycle begins anew. So there's replay value for sure, but there's it's interesting, and I haven't lost the main rite yet. Like, I've actually only run through the game one time and did the final rite once and sent one person away. Subsequent cycles are shorter. There aren't as many matches to go through, and like the characters actually acknowledge that this is the next cycle and the next cycle. So it's not like you're doing a fresh new game every time you do it. But yeah, if you lose the final rite, you sure do get to let an enemy go free. And I'm kind of curious because it seems like the game is hinting at the fact that might not be a bad thing. Like, maybe you shouldn't be helping your people go free, because you're in the underworld after all. And what if those people are there because they did actually bad things, and they shouldn't be back on the surface? But conversely, like, the game doesn't paint the Commonwealth, the above world, as a very great place that is good to its citizens. So it's really interesting. I'm not, I've only run through it once, like I said, so I don't know the full story yet, but I find it very fascinating and so much more compelling than their first 2 games. So for people in your position, Rob, I would say it's worth checking out for sure. It's pretty cheap too.
How much was it?
Like 15 or 20 maybe.
Oh, okay. Yeah. That seems reasonable. There's a couple things on my Steam list that I'm trying to like talk myself into buying Kingsway. I really want to give that a shot. I just haven't had the time for it right now. I've just been replaying stuff. That's the one that's like a browser-based old.
Oh yeah.
RPG that looks really crazy. I've really wanted to try that out. I just haven't I don't know, just finding the little bit of time to give that one a shot and have time to dedicate to it.
You gotta feel it too, right?
What's that?
I always find it helps when you feel a game out too.
Yeah, I kind of want to
force it.
I kind of want to see if I'm going to get into it. Part of me also wanted to pick up another round of Darkest Dungeon because that Radiant update apparently makes the game a little bit easier on people like me that have a life and don't want to spend 100 hours like.
What did that add? Because I know the Crimson Court is coming soon to PS4 and is already out on PC.
The Radiant update significantly reduces the playtime of a single like game of Darkest Dungeon. So like you don't have to grind as much to increase levels. It's still super hard, but they don't do that thing where you have to immediately retire some of your characters if they go to the Darkest Dungeon and like survive. That was that was a part about the end game of Darkest Dungeon. Like, hey, I finally got these super powerful characters. And wait a minute, if they die, if they go to the Darkest Dungeon and complete a level, I have to completely rebuild my team again. Like that was a nope. Yeah, that was a nope. I'm not nope. So I kind of fell off Darkest Dungeon, but I do want to give that another shot. Hey guys, put it on Switch. For the love of God, put that game on Switch. I mean, everything should be on Switch, but Darkest Dungeon is kind of a no-brainer on that system. But
I'm loving my Switch as like a retro-styled game device. Like I have Namco Museum, I have Gunvolt Burst, I don't know, what else do I have? I'm going to be getting Sonic Mania soon. I feel like it just feels good to play chunky pixelated games on the Switch, but I don't know. That's just me.
I fell into the same problem we were talking about a second ago with Gunvolt Burst, where I found a system that really worked for me, and then I just never felt the need to branch out from that.
That's fair.
Like I made the homing missiles, and it was like, okay, well, game's kind of over right now, isn't it? Like, it just didn't really incentivize me to try different things, and that's my fault as a gamer in a lot of ways. But it could also be a balancing issue that they should have worked on maybe a little bit more.
I see that as like a very speed run driven game, and I think a lot of people are going to. I think the speedrunning community will pick that up and do some interesting things with it, like finding ways to, optimum run through each stage. Like, oh, I want the fire bullet wave, but only one at a time because it'll hit the right enemy in the right spot. You know what I mean? Like, there's just so much flexibility there. It's overwhelming to me, but there's so much flexibility that I think people will take to that. Specific people will take to that.
The fans of the genre will like it. It wasn't my cup of tea, but like the Switch right now, I think the other game I'm really waiting for is August 29th is going to be a very weird day because the XCOM 2 expansion comes out and Mario Raving Rabbids comes out, and I'm going to end up playing both of those.
I don't want to talk about it.
You're going to play Rabbids. You're going to.
I hate the shit out of it on principle. I'm sorry.
Yeah, but but it looks like a great game.
If there is a mode where you can 100% turn off Rabbids, sure.
I know. I feel the same way. I wish that
I've talked about this. Like, Rabbids are just like minions with rabbit ears, and I hate minions. So
scream just as much.
Yeah.
I can't subject myself to that because I love myself. So. That's weird.
No. It's just weird that game ended up like looking as good as it did, but we're all kind of in the same boat of like, we really wish it didn't have rabbits, and that sucks.
Yeah, right. Like, it's a fascinating idea.
Like unanimously very well.
I'm probably gonna get it.
You're screaming.
I think I'm probably going to get it because I really like those kinds of games, and it's doing something different. It's very bright. It's very colorful. I'm really digging on that, and I think a little bit more RPG mechanics in XCOM is kind of a good thing. But I'll probably be playing that and XCOM 2 at the exact same time just because, I hate myself, and I'm a glutton for punishment.
Clearly. And what were you going to say about Kingsway?
I want to pick it up. I want to have enough time to really devote to it. Like, I know Persona 5 is still in my backlog, and I feel really, really bad about that. But, like, I just want to be able to devote enough time to Kingsway where I don't, I want to give it the attention it deserves. And I think also that might be a good office game if I put Steam on my office computer. Like, I'm pretty sure that game will run on anything, and that might be a really good, when I'm in the office and I have some downtime, that's a good opportunity to play that.
That's fair. Yeah.
I mean, and I'm still working on Dragon Quest VI, so I've got to finish that too. So.
Oh, nice! I didn't realize you were playing 6 right now.
Yeah, well, in the past year, what all did I do? I did 4, 5, 7, and 8, and 6 was the last one in my backlog. 6, I think, Derek, you are going to like 6 because it is just a condensed version of 7.
Yeah, because 7,
yeah.
I gave up before I got to the job system, which is a damning sign. I've played 6 before, but only to like just after I got the jobs, and that's not very far. That's not as far into 6 as it is into 7, but it's still far enough that, like, I don't know. It's a little bit of investment for me to pick it back up. I enjoyed it though. I love me some Dragon Quest. I just think that 7's pacing was it remains a problem, and that's like the only Dragon Quest that I just kind of give the side eye to because I wanted to love it and I can't. So,
and I understand that, and I think with 6 is very much the precursor to 7, and not just in name. You have a lot of the same problems in 7, but they're not as bad in 6. So 7 has some absolutely terrible triggers where, like, oh, you have to talk to this one person in this one house, or else the story will not continue.
Yeah, or go through the castle all the way. You got to go inside the castle, go up to the throne room, go around the corner, down those stairs, and then fall in a hole to talk to the dude you need to talk to.
Yeah.
And it's one way. So when you got to come back in 30 seconds, you got to do the same trick, you know? It's like,
yeah, 6 has a little bit of that, but it isn't as bad. Although last night, like, Jackie was watching TV and I was playing Dragon Quest, and I started getting really pissed off because I definitely talked to everybody in the town. The quest line did not trigger because I did not talk to the same person twice. And so it was like, oh my, like I was getting, there was some swearing. I was getting a little salty, and but we got through that. The job system in 6 is really good because it doesn't do the thing that 7 does, where you lose a lot of those skills from the higher level job classes. Which I understand why they did that. They did it for like balancing purposes, but it didn't necessarily make the game fun.
Right.
But I think you'll like 6 if you can find it on DS. I'd say
I've got it. Yeah, I still have it.
Yeah.
I just need to, like, you know, pick it back up, but it's unlikely to happen anytime soon. I find that I like your sort of explanation of it being a condensed version of 7, because I find that more and more, you know, games are still an enormous part of my life, and I play a ton of games, but I just don't have as much time for like the 100-hour ones if I'm going to be hitting everything else I want to hit. Mm-hmm. So, you know, this is not an uncommon statement or, you know, thing to say, but it's like when you're younger and you have a lot of time, but you can't afford to get all the games. Sure, give me the 100-hour one because I can play it forever. But now I'm looking for those condensed experiences, which is, here we go, you're going to roll your eyes a little bit. That's why I love Falcom games generally, except for the one I'm going to talk about today, because I think Falcom has a really good sense of pacing for the most part, and like some of their games, especially the earlier East games, can be like digested in a much shorter period of time comparatively to stuff that's, you know, I don't know, these like Dragon Quest games. So if Dragon Quest 6 is the more streamlined, condensed version of 7, sign me the F up. I'm there.
Right. And at the risk of breaking your segue, which was very well placed, happy birthday, Derek. Happy 30.
Oh, thank you. I drank a lot. It was good. I went to
Good.
I went to like a not surprise but surprise pool party, and that was really nice because I missed having a pool and I got to swim, and drank some booze and ate some food. It was good, man. It was a good birthday.
Big 3-0 is weird.
The dirty 30.
The dirty 30 is really weird. Like it messed me up a little bit. And Steph, you're still a little ways away from 30, correct?
Yeah, next year.
Oh God. You'll be fine. You'll be fine. Trust me.
Try not to think about it too much, you know.
Oh, I already am.
It's just weird. It's just like a weird birthday. But anywho, so now I'll let you use your segue to talk about the Tokyo Xanadu's.
Sure. So
Xanadu.
I always think of the Olivia Newton-John
Me
song.
too.
We all
Me
know.
too. How
And
can you not?
Neon Lights, yeah.
Specifically, I think of the Dance Dance Revolution version of that because that was my first introduction to it when I was younger, because I have no culture, or didn't when I was a kid. So I can't tell you how much music I was exposed to like through DDR for the first time. It was so pathetic. But, you know, whatever. Live and learn.
Hey, whatever gets you to listen to it, I guess.
Right.
Yeah.
So apparently this show is going to kind of be like the Derek hour today. So
I'm okay with
I have
that.
several things to talk about. But so Tokyo Xanadu, you guys talked about it on the episode before last when I was unable to make it. So I'm imagining Caitlin talked about it. Did she say positive things? Did she like it?
Solosi talked about it.
Oh, really? Okay. Do you remember what all he said? If he was into it, or
I believe he was trying to be very diplomatic.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, I could see that. Tokyo Xanadu, it's a game by Falcom, that company that I'm obsessed with. And it's you guys probably don't need like a huge rundown, but it's like their take on Persona, basically. Persona mixed with an action RPG. The Xanadu series is an older series that has been around since, God, I don't know, like the late 80s or early 90s. And they are typically dungeon crawlers. Like Xanadu Next, Xseed actually localized and released on PC within the last year. Maybe it was a little over a year ago. I can't remember. Anyway, and that's like a very high fantasy, sort of medieval-esque, darker gothic dungeon crawler. Whereas Tokyo Xanadu is like, okay, let's do a dungeon crawler, but let's make it Japanese high schoolers in modern day. So, the Persona influence is extremely apparent. And normally I think that would be a good thing, seeing as Persona has very solid gameplay systems that we all like. And Trails of Cold Steel took that Persona sort of influence and I think did some good things with it, but it was a little bit too protracted or, samey at times. Tokyo Xanadu is like 10 times more derivative than that, which... No hyperbole here, guys. Tokyo Xanadu is just like, I think it's Falcom's most generic game ever. And I find that really disappointing because I think that they can take even mundane sort of, not mundane ideas, but like they're good at making really solid gameplay systems and mechanics that might seem unassuming, but they just feel so good to control. And they pay a lot of attention to detail, particularly with like character development systems or like relationship mechanics and that kind of stuff. But Tokyo Xanadu is just like, it's so flat to me. I beat it today, actually. I got the true ending, which was unnecessary as hell. Oh my god. Holy shit. It was just like, it harkened back to a certain PS2 Final Fantasy where a character that didn't need to come back to life came back to life. So anyway.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
It made me so mad. I was like,
I remember after watching the Final Fantasy X ending too, I was like, oh no, there's a second game.
Yeah, I mean that
we've like so beautifully sad by the ending of Final Fantasy X, and then 10-2 was just around the corner.
Yeah, it's kind of a shame.
Yeah, so they sure did that, but that's not my main complaint. My main complaint is just that
it's generic.
It's just generic. Like, you've seen all these characters before. You've seen their archetypes.
Is there a best friend character trope?
Oh, God, yeah, there is. There's
like how many of them? Both all three of them?
There are three! There are three best friend character trope characters, and they're all, they have varying importance to the main plot, but they sure are there. I just find that none of the characters have interesting wrinkles. Like, Falcom's thing that they do is they sometimes have these stereotypically seeming characters that subvert that, and you're like, oh my god, I didn't expect that character to move in that direction. Tokyo Xanadu just doesn't do that. Like, a couple of times it gets close to being smart, but for the most part it's just, oh, here we have like the weirdly elevated in status. Like, there's a girl in your high school, she's a student council president or whatever, but she's also the daughter of like some global technology company, so she handles a lot of the company's day-to-day affairs, and it's like, nobody would put a 16-year-old in charge of a friggin' like global tech company. This is ridiculous. So
not when you're a prodigy student in some fancy school. Come on.
It's just, there's that, and there's like the genius hacker who's aloof, and oh my god, I was taking screenshots, but like every one of this dude's lines is some kind of a video game. Not a video game reference to a specific game, but like you'll be about to fight a boss and people are like, okay guys, this is it. We have to fight with all our strength. And he'll be like, man, it's like fighting the final boss in one of my RPGs. Like every single time, and I wanted to punch this kid in the throat. Like, he's like, oh, did we clear the flag that we needed to progress this route? LOL. Like, no, stop. So I just felt that it had like the flattest cast of characters, and the combat is kind of like East.
I was gonna say, worse. Is that at least okay?
It's like East, but worse.
It's like East, but worse.
It isn't to say, that's not to say it's bad, but it sort of lacks nuance, I think. Whereas East is really each game plays a little differently in terms of the East games, but like they're all well suited to high level skilled play, and they have higher difficulties. And it's like if you're great at dodging, pattern recognition, like you can do cool stuff in those games. Whereas I feel like Tokyo Xanadu is just a little bit too straightforward, bland, and like kind of impossible to lose, at least on the default difficulty. Because there came a point late in the game where I was just sort of not totally not avoiding attacks, but I could just like stand there and keep smashing my hardest hits, and the enemies would hit me a little bit, and I'd just like switch to somebody else, and I'd be fine. Like there just doesn't feel like there's a lot of strategy. At least it doesn't reward strategic thinking. So I guess I'm just gonna sit here and crap on Tokyo Xanadu, but has a good soundtrack. I bought the soundtrack on US iTunes like 2 years ago.
Yeah, that one was good actually.
Yeah, it's been in my rotation ever since then.
I haven't, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So there's a lot of good music in it, especially the dungeon themes. There's some great ones in there. But the music is kind of the best part.
Yay! So it's got something.
Yeah, it's not like a trash fire. It's just I think it's Falcom's worst game, and I was really let down by it. So at this point, I'm actually thinking I might cancel my pre-order on the Tokyo Xanadu EX Plus version coming out for PS4 later this year. EX Plus is sort of like a Persona 3 FES. So it's the game, but with a few extra character side stories and like a new epilogue, which is kind of ridiculous because the game already has an epilogue beyond the ending in the Vita version. So I guess there's like a double epilogue now. And I think a new playable character, maybe 2 I heard, but it doesn't, I mean, the characters aren't that different really. I didn't feel like each one does have a different skill set for sure, but when it came down to it, you could just pick one character and like mash your hardest attack and win regardless. So Tokyo Xanadu, yeah, doesn't come with my strongest recommendation. I would probably give it somewhere around like a 6.5.
I almost bought Xanadu Next on Steam sale during the summer, and again, I had too many other games to play in my backlog. Would I like that one? Like that one?
I think
straight up.
You would like that more.
Yeah,
you would like that more for sure. It's like I said, it's kind of more grim, almost gothic styled. Unfortunately, I haven't played as much of it as I'd like because when it came out, there were some pretty nasty bugs in the Steam version.
I remember that. Yeah.
And there were ones that were like erasing entire text boxes and like corrupting saves and stuff. And I experienced those, and I had crashes, and I was like, all right, I'm going to wait for this to get patched. And it took them a while to get it patched, but once they finally did, I think I had moved on to something else. So I'll go back to that eventually. I think Xanadu Next is like more, more traditional solid Falcom, whereas Tokyo Xanadu was like, okay, this is what's popular, so let's do that. And they didn't really execute as well as they could have. So. Mm-hmm. So, sorry, Falcom. You can do better. I know you can. Okay.
Trails of Steel 3 looks good.
Yes, it does. Shall I move on to the next game that I'm apparently going to talk about?
What's the next game you're going to talk about?
The next game I'm going to talk about is Miitopia. It is a 3DS RPG that came out pretty recently. I was lucky enough to score it on Amazon Prime Day. Like, there was some error with Amazon Prime Day's prices on certain game pre-orders, and it was like tripling or quadrupling the Prime Day discount. So I snagged this guy for $6.
Nice.
Definitely happy I paid $6 and not $40 for it because I'm not sure it's worth 40. But yeah, Miitopia is like, if you ever played Find Me, the Street Pass game that's included with the 3DS, this is like if they made Find Me into a fully realized game. It is a kind of, I would describe it as a light RPG where you're using Miis and you can pull Miis from your system's Mii Maker. You can pull them from Tomodachi Life if you have a save for that, and you can pull it from Miitomo, the smartphone app, which is kind of cool because like I know some people were using that to interface. So it's like, oh, I don't want to bother to create Miis just for this game. So you have several places you can pull Miis from, and then you assemble them into a party of adventurers, and you go on this adventure and fight turn-based battles. Now, the sort of like crux of the game lies in the interactions between your characters, and it seems like it's just a way for them to create silly situations using, familiar faces to you. So like I have, my boyfriend is in my party, so I'm like a mage and he is a chef. So he like cooks food that can heal or hit enemies with a frying pan. And then we have my friend Roxy, who is she's a very, very short girl, and her Mii is like the shortest Mii possible, but she's our warrior. So she's a tank. And then my friend John, I made into a female pop star. So he has like this Minnie Mouse ribbon and like a microphone that looks like an ice cream cone. And it's just like the animations are just funny. It's legitimately pretty amusing to watch other characters interact. And the game is based around, you fight these turn-based battles, but like between dungeons, your characters go back to the inn and they can talk to each other. And as they talk to each other, they just kind of say silly things and they level up. as their relationships level up, they get access to new stuff. So, at relationship level 2, like one of you might warn the other one about an attack and they'll dodge the attack. At relationship level 5, maybe they'll show off for each other and like do bonus damage every now and then. So it behooves you to like form these relationships with your characters. But the dungeons are totally automatic, which I did not know about before I played the game, and I found very disappointing. It's like you pick a dungeon and then your characters just auto walk through it, and all you can do is choose take branch left or take branch right, and then you'll get into a battle. Like a scripted place in the dungeon, you'll get into a battle. So it's like, it's light, like I said, and it's something that I would feel much more. I'm glad that I paid less for, and I think that they should have priced it lower than $40. Of course, I don't know how much time they had to spend localizing it or whatever, because there is a lot of text. But it's just kind of like a silly feel-good RPG, a mini RPG, if you will, and I found it to be a pretty good palate cleanser from some of the other stuff I've been playing. So if you like the idea of taking your friends and family, or even weird me's, like people make all kinds of strange me's based on TV show characters and famous people, and you can certainly use those in the game. If you like the idea of taking personalities, smashing them into an RPG party, and then doing this sort of like easy but fun and breezy RPG, it might be up your alley. I think it's pretty fun, but not a lot of substance. So, have either of you guys looked at it at all? I think, Rob, you said you saw it at Target the other day.
I saw it at Target, and I was just like, okay. Like,
It's a game.
It looked like a game, but it just didn't.
I always preferred the Puzzle Pass thing and for the Me games.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know if I'd be really interested in it, just because, I don't know, I was more into swapping those puzzles.
Yeah. So Miitopia's totally
I don't think
right.
I'm the target audience for it.
Yeah. And it's not something that I would have picked up had I not found it for really cheap. So
I was going to say, I'm surprised they made a full game into it. Like, I thought this would be like an eShop kind of game that you pick up for like maybe $5.
I thought so too. When they first revealed this, I was like, oh, okay, it's like their next Street Pass game. But no, it's a full game. There have been some pretty dark screenshots that I've seen around, because you cast the characters, like I said, so it's not just your party, but also like villains and important townspeople and stuff. They'd be like, pick someone to play the princess, or pick someone to play the Dark Lord, who was your antagonist, and you have no idea how many Dark Lord screenshots I've seen of our president, which, I hate saying those words together, but the president, I don't know, that guy. People make him into the Dark Lord pretty often, so I've seen some pretty funny things like that. But really, Miitopia is the kind of game, it's like, it depends on how much effort you're willing to invest in making funny character situations happen. So that's okay. It's not too bad.
It's a game. You just think it should have been priced a little bit differently, it sounds like.
Yeah, for sure.
Kind of fallen into that trap that we've talked before about. It's like, if you would price your game appropriately,
maybe it'd sell better.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just sort of, it's hard to escape the whole like dollar value equals quality mentality, but it's just more like proportionately, what am I expecting for the money that I put into this, which is why Steam sales are awesome, because a lot of the time you put in almost nothing and you end up getting amazing games. So this is a situation in which it's like, okay, I mean, you're asking for quite a lot for what amounts to a silly little character insert game, but sure, it's okay. Well, I mean, if you want to talk about more substantial stuff, I know we've discussed plenty of FF12 recently, but Rob, you finally finished your playthrough of it, have you not?
I did. I picked it up almost immediately after we talked about it last episode, and I played the ever-loving hell out of it. Put about 40 hours in, could have finished it at 35. I played almost the entire thing in the speed-up mode. And it was real funny. I was having the exact same experience with the game that I had when I played the international Zodiac job system a couple years back, where I started it up and I was like, oh my God, I remember how much I love this game. And then I got to around Bujerba when you finally get the ability to kind of grind a little bit. And I started grinding and I was like, wow, I'm really getting bored with this. This is kind of the same thing over and over again. I'm quickly losing interest. And I was texting Derek saying I'm going to quit. Like I'm already getting bored with it. I've had enough. And then I beat the first Esper, which allows you to get the second job. for every character. And that was really what saved the game for me. It was like all of a sudden I felt so much more flexibility. I felt like I could really plan out each party member. Ash suddenly started hitting like an absolute freight train because I made her into a monk black mage combo, which is apparently the death combo in the game of just like now you have a super strong black mage with ridiculous stopping power. And so I really started to enjoy the game, and I actually started thinking about starting it again. But I think maybe Final Fantasy XII takes a little too long to open that versatility up.
Really?
It really. I mean, you don't get to Wraithwall's Tomb for like what 9 hours.
I think it's probably like the 1/3 mark of the game.
Yeah, but like up until then, I mean, I get what they did with the Zodiac jobs in that international version, which was make each character distinct, and I get that. But they're kind of boring. Like if you make a Shikari, the hunter type character, all you're really doing is smacking stuff with melee attacks, and that starts getting a little boring. And I think one problem Final Fantasy XII has is magic is not useful till about the midway point of the game. You just do not have a lot of MP. You can easily run out of MP if you don't manage your gambits properly. You don't really hit for a lot of damage. And then all of a sudden, about the midway point of the game, magic becomes nothing but nukes, where you're just like annihilating everything left and right. You get Asuna, which lets you get rid of almost every status ailment in the game. Like the game shifts from melee focus to magic focus, and it comes at about the point that you open up the second job. So up until that point, I was playing almost all melee characters, and Balthier was barely caping enough MP to cure my guys effectively. And like at first you only have the cure spell, so you're relying on a lot of potions, and it just feels like nothing is really working. And then you open up that second job and it starts to work. But to get to that point, you got to go through a lot of story bits. You got to go through a lot of those opening sections of that game, which I think 12 starts really strong, but it doesn't make it pleasant for subsequent playthroughs. I almost wish that there was a way to just like on New Game Plus, skip all that crap and get immediately to start selecting your jobs and start doing the things that make the game fun.
There's a few games that do that, and I actually really appreciate that.
I think it needs it. I'm way higher on Final Fantasy XII than I was when I first played it, when I first played the international job system. It did something right where I sat down and I played it the whole way through. I agree with all the sentiments that we made last time, which is it was super ahead of its time, to the point where like you're unlocking so many different things, and you go on hunting quests and just this, that. It really is ahead of its time, but it's still a little unpleasant to play. It's unpleasant to have to go talk to the same person multiple times in order to get a hunt, to go out and fight something. If you do not play this game in speed up mode, I think there's something wrong with you. Like it is, these dungeons are terrible. Like they really are, and they don't do a good job of making you know what is the important piece of equipment that you can only get in the dungeon versus a treasure chest that just gives you like 200 gil.
Yeah, but thank God treasure chests actually have a use in this one. Like they
That's
rebalance the distribution of treasure, and you don't have to worry about the Zodiac Spear anymore. So
That's
it's
good.
not terrifying. Yeah,
No, that's good. And like toward the end of the game, some of the later dungeons, you unlock some really awesome abilities. Like when I unlocked the spell Scathe, like holy crap! Now Ash was just hitting for like 17,000 damage.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure a lot of the endgame abilities you can only get through specific treasure chests.
Yes,
Because I reached I did all the Espers except Zodiark, which I still haven't beaten yet because he was kicking my butt. But there were some abilities I definitely still didn't have access to, and it's probably because they were in chests that I missed in certain places. So it's interesting how much that rebalances it, you know?
And it also gets very Vagrant Story toward the end of the game when those dungeons really start to open up and there's lots of dangerous stuff in there. And like Derek's saying, you start unlocking really, really good abilities. That's where the game is actually really, really good. I think the end game of Final Fantasy XII is pretty excellent, although it does, like Dragon Quest, kind of start falling into the trap of, well, you need to talk to this one person to get this one key to open up this one area, because if you don't, you're not going to get in there. There's
yeah, I'm straight up like just using a guide for endgame stuff. Anything beyond the main story, like just guide.
I think what I really want, and we talked a little bit about it last episode, is I really want to see another game in this style with a little bit more modern conventions. Again, I think it takes maybe a little too long to open up that versatility in the Zodiac job system, but I also understand it. They don't want you to be able to break your characters right away. That makes sense to me. The story at the start of the game is super strong. It isn't quite as bad as I remembered it as a kid, but it's still not that great of a story toward the end.
Yeah, it's like I think it's good. The ideas are good. The execution is just lacking because you sort of lose. There isn't enough detail in the later stages, especially. So
Right, I agree with you. And they kind of lose out the political part of it too.
Yeah, that stuff just leaves. And again, I think that if the dungeons were a little bit more interesting, I would be able to stick with it more. But it really does feel like the third part of a trilogy where you have Final Fantasy Tactics, Vagrant Story, and Final Fantasy XII. I have so many great things to say about this game, but I just would love to see them try it again. Try this Zodiac job system in a more complete experience that's kind of built from the ground up for it. A little bit more interesting dungeons, but everything about this game is really, really good. And without the changes that they made to the Zodiac Age, I probably would have fallen off of it. So that is a testament to how good and how much they put into this remake. It is really, really good. I'm just a little down on certain aspects of it, and I wish it was a little faster to pick back up. Even though they give you a level 90 party when you do New Game Plus, it's still like, okay, I have a couple of hours until I even get to like the party members that I want, which is great because then they give you those party members and you never lose them. I really like that aspect of the game, but I just wish it was a little bit more pleasant to play through. Like just an option that said, can we just skip all this and just get you to like, past all the opening introduction areas and just get you to like Bosch, just get me to Bosch and then I'm good.
I mean, you can fast forward through it, especially in New Game Plus. You'll move real fast and you can just skip cutscenes. So it won't be so bad.
That fast forward is essential because some of those dungeons, not so, like the Bujera mines are pretty good, but like the airships are just like, what the hell? Like what the absolute hell is this?
I remember when I was, when I first played through FF12, the Pharos was like a nightmare. It's an interesting dungeon, I guess, but because it actually makes you think in some areas. You have to think about which switches to flip and stuff, but it's just so long. And it's not clear that that's the final dungeon, right? Because the Leviathan is not really a dungeon,
right? It feels like the halfway point of the game, which is very bizarre. It also has one of the most interesting characters in Redis.
Redis is awesome.
He is great. Also voiced by Phil Lamar, so we love him. Mm-hmm. But like those dungeons are just so boring and like drab and you're right that final the Pharos dungeon is terrible. The Great Crystal area makes me want to pull off my own eyelids.
Okay, yeah, like getting to Ultima is it was terrible. I hated that so much. I straight up was like, all right, I'm going to use a guide, and then even the guide I looked at, it was like deciphering hieroglyphics, like trying to figure out which warp I needed and which direction to go.
Yeah,
nope.
Especially after Dragon Quest VIII, like that remaster, and these games are released within a year of each other. Like Dragon Quest VIII's dungeons are amazing and fun, and you always feel like a treasure chest gives you something meaningful. I think if 12 could work on that aspect a little bit, it would be an absolutely phenomenal game because it's the battle system I love. Like once you get that battle system cooking, it is really, really cool to just make a death party that is just, there's really smart upgrades that you can get. Like I had Ash with the, gaining MP after she did damage and after she killed an enemy.
Yeah,
so
I love those.
She just never ran out of MP. Like she's using the strongest attacks in the game over and over again, and she's not running out of MP. And I think that plays into the fact that this is a very weirdly balanced game where at the start the magic costs too much and doesn't do enough damage to justify it. But if you invest in it, by the end of the game, it becomes super powerful.
Yeah.
It's cool.
It's the rebalancing is really helpful.
It is really.
Go ahead.
I don't really find Dragon Quest VIII's dungeons very interesting.
They're better than 12.
Yeah. Okay. All right, we're back.
How far are you in 8? Your continued struggles in Dragon Quest 8.
I just arrived at Baccarat.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's fairly early.
Is
Yes.
it?
I think that's around where I am too. Yeah, I mean the game does the whole like you're almost at the end, JK LOL.
Oh my god. Okay. Oh yeah.
I think what I like about the dungeons in Dragon Quest VIII, though, is that when you go down an alternate path, they usually give you something. And
Yeah.
it's something worthwhile. Whereas I think a lot of that, even just making the treasure chest just not look like, pots and pans from Mass Effect would have done a lot to help out Final Fantasy 12. Because
Just to go sort of off topic, I'm happy that the worst plot twist already happened with Final Fantasy VIII and the orphanage. So that's behind
Hooray,
me.
yeah. I guess I can't go any more downhill. Yeah.
I don't know. No, I was thinking about that the other day. I was like, man, even trying to buy what it's selling, it's so stupid.
Oh boy. 12 is really good. I would love to see another game in that style, or maybe a Vagrant Story 2. No, wait, we've talked about that. I don't want a Vagrant Story 2.
Didn't they obnoxiously tweet hey, if keep tweeting that you're interested in the Ivalice universe, and maybe we'll see something new, or they're kind of contemplating something new in the Ivalice world.
I wouldn't be surprised if
it'd be great.
Final Fantasy 14 Ivalice stuff sort of reignited some interest, seeing as Final Fantasy 14, it was just announced has 10 million active players.
Oh, yeah.
So, if a lot of people are really into it and they get a lot of feedback, I wouldn't be surprised if that sort of carried over into Square Enix's other plans.
If I could have a request, if anybody from Square Enix is listening, can you please go into the Final Fantasy Tactics War of the Lions PSP version and flip off the CPU limiter that limits the frame rate and slows the game down amazingly? Because apparently you can easily do that on a hacked PSP, but since I don't have one, I'm playing it on a Vita, I can't do that. There is literally a toggle that just reduces that because they wanted to save on battery for War of the Lions, and that feels like a very simple switch that I wish somebody would just go into and flip over at Square Enix, because I would love to play War of the Lions, and I know it's petty, but I don't like the fact that game has slowdown. It makes me feel like I'm playing a hacked version of it.
No, I'm super against slowdown too. That was actually, I didn't really say when I was talking about Tokyo Xanadu at all, but Tokyo Xanadu has awful slowdown a lot of the time. Like anytime there's a cutscene where the entire party is present, there's slowdown because there's just too many character models on the screen. And same with a lot of battles. Like if an enemy does a really big particle effect attack, slow down. Which actually reminds me, I was playing the demo for Monster Hunter Stories today.
Oh, how was it?
I'm not a fan, but
is this the Final Fantasy Tactics but Monster Hunter game?
No, it's Monster Hunter but chibi, and it's like a turn-based RPG where you have a monster that you ride.
Oh boy! So
I've tried many times to get into Monster Hunter to no avail, and I don't think it's bad or anything. I just think it kind of eludes me, and it's just so esoteric that I've struggled. But Monster Hunter Stories, I was like, cool, maybe this is going to be more my jam. And I downloaded the demo, and it's it's not bad. And it's only a demo, obviously. I played the demo for like 40 minutes, but the game is like so badly optimized. I don't understand. Is this a Monster Hunter tradition or something to have games that just have like shit UI and blurry text and like weird textures in the background? I don't understand. Like you're moving through the town and characters will.
The new game kind of feels like that.
Which one does?
The new one. Like I don't know. The UI is just kind of ugly and cluttered.
What's that all about? Like there are character models in the background. Well, they'll do the whole. Like they're doing visual tricks to try and make the game run better. Like they'll do the thing where in the distance you'll see a character, but it's just a 2D flat texture until you get close enough, and then it turns into a 3D model. But the town is full of those, and this is like weird blank face silhouettes, kind of like the blank people in Persona 5 that you see in the background. Yeah. It's like that.
Yeah.
It's bizarre, and it doesn't seem like it's a stylistic choice. It's like, oh, we're cutting corners to make the game run.
Is it maybe an issue? It's on 3DS, right?
Uh-huh. I have a new 3DS, too.
Oh, okay. That was going to be my next question, because I'm constantly worried, like, with the new Metroid game coming out, I'm like, is that going to run like crap on my regular 3DS, or am I still going to be okay? Like,
I just think it's badly optimized. And
yeah, that could be.
It's so strange to me. I don't get why that's a thing people are willing to put up with, because I'm not. Like, frame rate and that kind of stuff, nope. I mean, I can deal sometimes, but I can't forgive it. I'm not just going to wave my hand and be like, it's fine. They don't have to do anything about that. They should. Why not? Make your game run better.
I mean, they could just say we're releasing Final Fantasy Tactics Vita Edition, and it's the same damn game, and just turn that off, and I would be in.
What?
Like I'd be totally down with it. I love Final Fantasy Tactics so much.
I know.
Do. We all do.
Yeah, it's good.
So
yeah,
that's
well,
about
I think
all.
that's all the games I had. Yeah,
Yeah.
Talked a lot, yeah. I've been playing a lot. How about you, Steph? Anything?
Well, no, just to kind of go off your, your train, I guess. I played Ever Oasis on the 3DS.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh my God. It was one of those games I picked up on a whim, and I'm completely loving it to death.
Okay, tell me a little bit about it. I don't know a whole lot.
Yeah, so it's
except for when I talked about it on this very podcast, and you probably muted me, but that's fine.
I'm sorry. What'd you say, Derek?
Go on, Steph.
No, but yeah, I don't know. Like, I'm glad you played it too as well, Derek, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, like as far as games go, I think it does everything I want it to do. It's incredibly small scale, but it does just a little bit of everything, and I'm absolutely adoring it. Well, first things first, like I think it uses all of the best colors of the rainbow. It is probably one of the prettiest games I've ever seen, and it has this kind of, Arabian Nights, but incredibly saturated look to it, but it's friendly, nice colors. All the leaves, like even on the 3DS, like all the leaves look lush, all the plants and vegetation look really good. Even some of the draw distance elements and, the way they make the world look is actually incredibly beautiful. It's a sort of action RPG. It's basically what Zelda would be if it was indeed an RPG. As we kind of go back and forth on, but it still has all the same kind of elements. So there's still like dungeons, bosses, enemies, upgrades. There's a town that you help rebuild, and just smaller ones between that. None of it is very thorough and in depth, but it's just all very, very fun to play. So
it's a very pleasant game.
Sorry, yeah,
it's a very pleasant game.
It's super pleasant. Yeah, so like I don't know how much it does really well. Like combat's really basic. You can easily evade most attacks, and a lot of enemies seem to attack in the same way. But if you're looking for something to just kind of waste a lot of great time with and just come out really happy, I totally recommend Ever Oasis.
It's a cute one.
It does look cute. I will say that.
Yeah, it's giving me a cavity. It's so cute. But yeah, no, it's a delightful looking game. All the enemies are even kind of pleasant to look at.
I know, yeah.
And I like how you don't really kill an enemy as much as it kind of blows up and turns into an innocent creature again and scuttles off. Like, it's just very sweet.
Very Sonic the Hedgehog of it, yeah.
Yeah, really. But yeah, I thought it was really cool. And it also had a character customization thing. I didn't expect that. That was one of the elements that completely threw me off. But yeah, no, cool game.
It is pretty cool. Well, Rob, it seems like we're winding down here today.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of quick hit games that have been coming out, and we're gearing up for the insanity that is the fall. As I look at my schedule and I see the XCOM expansion, Mario, Raving Rabbids. Derek hates this.
Yep, I do.
New Dishonored piece of DLC, which I'll probably buy because I'm an idiot, but the latest trailer made it look way more interesting than Dishonored 2, so I might pick that up. New Metroid, Danganronpa V3.
Oh yeah, I've been watching the character trailers too. Like I don't
Robert, are you still anticipating? Are you actually anticipating that one?
Yeah, Danganronpa? Hell yeah!
I don't know what you like anymore, man.
I think
I almost called you Robin right there instead of Robert. I'm sorry.
I went by Robin for a brief period in elementary school because I was an idiot. I really got into Danganronpa, but I will say, much like Steven talked about way back in the day, it kind of put up some barriers for me initially, and I wish it was paced a little bit better. But by the end, I was pretty invested in it, more so 1 than 2. I found 2 a little hard to play because they really don't tell you what is going on in 2 until the complete end of the game. So you're kind of like solving all these mysteries, which are kind of fun on their own, but you're like, what the hell is going on here? And then you get to the big reveal and you're like, oh, that's kind of interesting. So I'm excited for 3, although I swear to God, if we fight Junko at the end of it, I'm going to kill myself again.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Like, do not do the same story for the 3rd time. Like, don't do the Blizzard thing of a hero falls from grace and do it over and over again. Don't have me fight the same character in Danganronpa V3. I don't know if you would like it, Steph. I don't know where you stand on the visual novels.
I like 999 a lot.
It's
Okay,
possible.
you might like this then. Yeah.
You might
Okay.
like this.
Like,
Did you
I
play?
thought Danganronpa looked
last-
very unappealing. Sorry, go ahead.
Did you play Virtue's Last Reward?
I did.
You didn't like it as much as 999?
No.
Oh wow.
No, wait, sorry, Virtuous Last Reward. No, I thought we were talking Zero Time Dilemma. They go
Oh,
very
okay.
wordy titles.
Yes.
Yeah, so Zero Time Dilemma was interesting.
But you didn't play Virtue's Last Reward?
Oh no, I played that one. I love the hell out of it.
Okay, good. just making sure. Oh God, what else is October is Wolfenstein and The Evil Within 2. There's just a lot, but I don't really feel like there's a lot of RPGs really for me, except the one game which is out in Japan right now and is selling like hotcakes, and I need a release date for it now. Dragon Quest XI just looks, oh my God.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God, Derek, which version were you gonna get? Or are you gonna get both?
Both.
I think I'm gonna get
Both.
both too.
Maybe all three. Which version is different?
I'm worried about that.
Man, does anybody else feel the music is kind of jarring though?
I
I
think
kind of do.
I think it's the same problem that the Dragon Quest games have always had. We talked about this, I think, during the retro encounter episode on Dragon Quest V. I love Dragon Quest music, but there's not enough. Like they make like 40 minutes of soundtrack.
Oh yeah, and I'm sick as hell of Koichi Sugiyama. Like I know I already talked about this and said I was sorry, but I'm still sorry about it. I guess a little sorry. I just think Koichi Sugiyama's music needs to evolve. It's been the same since Dragon Quest released. It's since its inception. It needs to be something different, and I'm tired of hearing like the same melody but arranged a tiny bit in every different game. Because it's like it sucks that I'm not looking forward to the Dragon Quest XI soundtrack at all. That's not even a component of the experience for me. It's like, okay, I guess it's going to be there and it's going to sound like I expect it to. But
I think 8's soundtrack was really good. Like for whatever reason,
yeah, 8 is great. Well, that's also because we got the orchestrated version of it in the US version.
Right. But I think with most of the Dragon Quest games, what ends up happening is you have these pretty long, sizable RPGs with, the same town melody used over and over again for the 20 towns that you visit. And that's a problem. And that's part
very
of the
happy and fluty too. Just
yeah. Well, I love happy and fluty, but like that's part of the problem with Dragon Quest VII is kind of the nadir of all of these problems. They use the same character models, the same building models, and the same town music for every town in the game. The only distinguishing feature about each town is the storyline going on between all of these character models that look the same. So that whole story, even though these little vignettes were really great, they all run together. I think 11's going to avoid that because at least the towns that I've seen look so distinct from each other, but that music is still the same music in every town. So I think, at least get another composer to make another 5 or 6 hours of music. Like it's kind of ridiculous that, the last Resident Evil game, Resident Evil 7, has almost 100 pieces of music of various lengths, and Dragon Quest 11 probably has like 20.
Yeah.
Like that's
It's
weird.
just, does it really have that little?
I took a stab, and I'm sure somebody's going to yell at me on the internet, but like it does not have enough music. Like it doesn't. Like they need more music for how big those games are.
Right.
It will do a lot to add more personality to the games. Like that's the one thing. But that being said, let's not just talk about the music because the graphics in that game, holy
Oh my god!
crap.
And both the 3DS and the PS4 versions look amazing.
Yeah.
I prefer I would rank them PS4 first probably, then pixelated 2D, and then 3D on 3DS. But it's a toss up between the top two. But they look great. Oh my god, that game looks pretty.
It is a sexy looking game. I'm gonna end up buying all of them. I think the only thing I don't like is the jumping animation in the PS4 version, especially. Like that looks janky as hell, and is probably going to be like not great. But like overall, that game just looks absolutely phenomenal. I'm super excited to play it. I need it to get here now, please.
Yeah, please. I considered importing it, but they announced the localization the day that the Japanese version came out, and I was like, okay, fine, I'll wait.
I think that's a good
form.
sign. I think that's a good sign that they announced it so early.
Yeah. I mean, we had heard rumblings before that, but yeah.
So that's really the one I'm excited about. What are you guys excited about for this fall as we move into the crazy season of video games? It doesn't necessarily have to be an RPG because, like we were saying, there isn't a huge number of RPGs coming out this fall.
I mean, I've got Ys 8 coming out in September, so I'm very excited for that. What all is coming out? I don't think we cover it, but Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice just came out. That looks interesting.
Pretty good reviews.
Yeah,
for the most part.
I do like their development philosophy of we wanted to make a AAA game with half the budget at half the length. I think that's a great idea, and more companies should follow suit on that.
I would agree with that. I think the only thing about that game that's kind of weird is there's some controversy about whether or not it actually does delete your saves.
I don't want to know. That's the kind of thing that you should just discover on your own.
Yeah, I kind of agree.
There's so many think pieces out there that are just BS, trying to get a hot take out there, and it's nobody wants to read your hot take on that. What else coming out? I'm sure there's something that I'm forgetting. But Super Mario Odyssey comes out. I'm very excited for that.
Oh my god, yeah. Oh.
Xenoblade allegedly is still coming out this year, though.
Which I'm cautiously optimistic for, since I'm a huge fan, but we've beaten to death the topic of that art style being what it is. What else is coming out? I'm sure if you said something, I might be like, oh yeah. But Mario Odyssey, Ys, and Xenoblade are pretty good hits for me. Steph, anything for you?
I have no idea what's coming out either. Besides, some of the stuff they showed at E3, the Mario Brothers remake.
Oh, Mario and Luigi. Yeah.
Yeah, the Mario and Luigi one. Yeah.
Oh yeah. That could be
I don't really have that much I'm looking forward to. I'm doing a lot of backlog these days.
Yeah, I feel you. I recently jumped into speaking of backlog, not that I'm playing enough other stuff already, but I jumped into the Japanese version of Zero no Kiseki, the fourth Trails in the Sky game, basically. And it's moving slow, but because my Japanese isn't good enough to move through it very quickly. But
it's a good one to kind of sit down with and try to learn or get better knowledge of the language with, at least.
Yeah, it's just a lot of energy to play, and I don't always have the energy to invest mentally. So yeah, I don't know. I'm sure we'll think of stuff after this episode goes up, and we'll be like, damn it, we should have mentioned that. But. So it goes. Dragon Quest XI, though, on the horizon. Can't wait.
Oh, God, I need that game. I part of me wanted to play Dragon Quest IX again, and then I remembered how grindy it was. And I was just like, oh.
9, you said?
Yeah, and plus you can't play it, online anymore.
I know, what a bummer.
That's a bummer. I wish I had played that game the way it was meant to be played, with buddies, going online, doing dungeons together. That was probably a great experience, but it's kind of gone now. It's a bummer.
It's a shame.
Yeah, that's a downer. And then, part of me wants to just do Dragon Quest VIII again, because I love that game so much. That's a game that I wish kind of had a faster opening. It's a pretty fast opening, but it could, just get me directly to New Game Plus. Just include New Game Plus in every RPG now, please. Just do it. It makes me replay your games, and I love it. So, any news anybody can think of, or are we just, filling for time right now?
I think we're fizzling out, man. I think it's time to call
it. Fizzling out is totally fine. Thanks, everybody, for listening to the show. As always, please be sure to send us emails, any questions you might have. I think my inbox is finally fixed because I was getting spam emails out the wazoo, but I think Mike was kind enough to fix that for me today because I'm not deleting 30 emails at noon anymore. But thanks, everybody, for listening. For Derek and Steph, we will see you all later.
See y'all.
Bye.
Par.
Par. Par.
Good job. Well done.